you will get access to. I don't hold anything or hide anything from you. So in your soft chalk, you have a discussion, and it talks about the types of microorganisms. Because microbiology is all about the scientific study, biology, remember that? The scientific study of life, right? But of which life? Of micro. What does micro mean? Small organisms. Organisms that you cannot see with your eye. So we're talking about microorganisms. So it's very specific. It's a field of study that only focuses mainly on those microorganisms. So we have to talk about, what are we talking about? What are the different types of microorganisms? All right. So you have two main types. You have those cellular types, that means microorganisms that are actually made up of cells. And I think we're familiar with some of them at least. Bacteria, archaea, protists, among other things. But then you have those ones that are called acellular. In biology, you want to change a word from something to something that it does not have, you throw A in front of it, see? Cellular means it's an organism that's made up of a cell. Acellular means it's something that is not made up of a cell. So you made the word negative by putting that A in front of it. Does anyone know what we need to do to the word if the word itself starts with a vowel? What do we put in front of it to make it negative? Meaning, I know you know. But you thought, like, English vowel in micro? What do I need to know that for? Aerobic. How do you make aerobic negative? Anaerobic. Good. So you put A in front of the word if the letter of that word does not start with a vowel. That's why cellular, acellular. Good? But if the word itself starts with a vowel, like aerobic, you know A is a vowel, you have to use an to make it negative. So that's the logic behind the word aerobic, anaerobic. So anaerobic would imply that whatever that organism is, it does not require oxygen, right? Or sometimes it says, oxygen hurts me, I can't have it, don't let it come near me, those kind of things. So I just wanted to point that out, cellular, acellular. So what are some of the things that are acellular? Viruses, very good example of that, of course. So the cellular microorganisms comprised of the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. There are cellular microorganisms that belong to the group of organisms that we refer to as prokaryotes. And obviously the two main types, are bacteria and archaea. Bacteria and their cousins, archaea. Those are the only prokaryotes. Eukaryotes, when we talk, you're a eukaryote, but you're not a microorganism, so you're not going to be on this list. But what is a microorganism eukaryotic cell or organism? Algae, fungi, protozoa, and helminths. Helminths are worms, parasitic worms. Not the worms that you go fishing with. No, these are the parasitic worms. So these are the things that we will be talking about in microbiology, and these are the things that we'll be mainly focusing on. The eukaryotic microorganisms are the algae, fungi, protozoa, and the helminths. When it comes to acellular, we talk mainly about viruses in this class, mainly. But there are other things that are considered acellular. The virioids, do not confuse the virioids with viruses. And then there's another name for a virus, virion. And you'll see in that unit. And that's what a lot of students make mistakes with. The word virion and virioid. They're completely two different things. A virion is a virus.
How do you spell it?
Viron. Virion. That's
Which is
a
virus.
fully formed, it's a fully formed virus, ready to infect you. But a virioid, you see how I'm stressing it? Because a lot of students make mistakes with this thing, and I don't want you to do the same thing. Virioid is basically a piece of RNA. That's it. It's just RNA. And we worry about those because they infect plants. Virioids are basically small pieces of RNA. And because of that, they're acellular. They're not cells. It's just a small piece of RNA, say 200, 300 bases long.
So there's no relation between one and the other?
No
One
relation
cannot-
at all, except the close spelling. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the virioid mainly infects plants. So one of my students, you know how she remembered it eventually? Watch this. Virioid ends with a D. It's like an upside down inverted P for plants. Catching it? So that's how she said, I need to remember this, and I don't want to get it confused, so I don't get points taken off. So she focused on the D and imagined the D flipping and becoming a P for plants. Got it? So virioid is a small piece of RNA that infects mainly plants. Do virioids hurt us? We don't know that yet. There are some people who are researching this. But we know they can have an effect on plants for sure. All right, what about prions? Prions are proteins. They're just proteins. And they're referred to as infectious proteins. These proteins are weird. And we'll talk about that when that unit comes. So for today, all you need to know about prions is that, simply, they are infectious proteins. And they can cause serious damage in you and I, among other animals, of course. And we'll talk about it. Okay, somebody tell me, from your Gen Bio experience, hopefully it was a good one, what is the difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryote? Speak up loud so you can get captured.
So eukaryotes, they have a membrane-bound organelle, which is nucleus. Prokaryote, they don't have it.
Good. So eukaryotes have membrane-bound or membrane-enclosed, because some students don't know what the word bound means. Bound means it's wrapped around. Membrane-bound organelles. One of which, like you said, is the nucleus. Another one is the mitochondria, the chloroplast, the lysosome, a whole bunch of them, right? And we'll talk about all of those. The prokaryotes do not have membrane-bound organelles. Why? Wouldn't that be a question in your mind? Why? Nobody?
Because there is no nucleus.
Go ahead.
They're single celled.
They're single cells? Good. They are single cells. The prokaryotes are unicellular, all of them. But that's not the reason why they don't have membrane-bound organelles. And this is what my discussion with my Gen Bio students yesterday. And you know what I told my Gen Bio students yesterday? I told them, you need to remember this forever. And if you were my Gen Bio students, I don't know if you remember me telling you to remember forever. It's simple. Prokaryotes do not have membrane-bound organelles. And the main reason why is because they can't make internal membranes. Did you hear the word that I stressed? What word did I stress?
Maybe.
No,
Internal.
the internal. See, because some students make a mistake and they say, I remember something about membranes that they cannot make. So prokaryotes can't make membranes. The only prokaryote that cannot make a membrane is a dead prokaryote. Because what about the cell membrane? Do they have a cell membrane? Of course they have a cell membrane. They're cells. You cannot have a cell without a cell membrane. So what are you talking about that they cannot make? I'm talking about membranes within the cell. And that's the idea of the word internal membranes. You cannot have a cell without a cell membrane. That is no different than this room that you're sitting here today. This room is a room. It's an isolated space from the rest of the building. Well, what's isolating it? The four walls. You catching it? If I break down this wall, besides the department suing me, right? We will not be in a room no more. Where will we be? An extension of the hallway. We won't be in the room. Our environment will eventually equilibrate with the environment in the hallway. If it's cold in the hallway and I break down this wall, it will now be cold in here. If it's hot in here and it will equilibrate because the wall is not there anymore. So what's the purpose of the four walls? To isolate the environment in this room, separate from the environment outside. And that's the whole idea of a cell membrane. The cell membrane, regardless of which cell you're talking about, the cell membrane is designed to separate the environment within the cell away from the environment outside of the cell. For you to stay alive, the cell membrane does a very important job. What is that? To keep those environments different and separated. It's called a state of disequilibrium. There's only one time in your life, or lack thereof, when the two environments are the same. When would that be, you think?
Death.
Yeah. At the point of death. Why? Because when you die, the cell membrane stops working. When the cell dies, the cell membrane stops working. And whatever it was doing all this time, which is disequilibrium, oh well, we're done. Everything is now equilibrium. Delta G is equal to 0. Your cell can't do any work. And the cell is dead. That's a quick Gen Bio 1 review in 1 minute. I know you heard about delta G. I know you heard about when the cell can no longer do any work, the delta G is equal to 0. Hopefully you remember those things. And if you don't, you need to do the Gen Bio review exercises, like in the next week or so, to recapture your Gen Bio, so that when I'm talking about things related to Gen Bio, you're not lost. Well, the good thing about that is that it's extra credit. So the extra credit opportunities that I'm offering for you, they're all Gen Bio related stuff. And you have my YouTube videos and so forth that you can hurry up, recapture your Gen Bio so you can have a fair chance of succeeding in this class. Okay, so now we know prokaryotes do not have membrane-bound organelles because they cannot make.
Internal membrane.
You don't forget that word, internal membrane. Membranes. Okay, so they don't have a mitochondria. They don't, because they cannot make internal membranes. So here's another mistake students make. Oh, they don't have a mitochondria, yeah? So they must not be making ATP. Why do you say that? Well, the eukaryotes have a mitochondria, yeah. And the mitochondria makes ATP, yeah. And what is ATP? The energy molecule, am I right?
Mhm.
So because prokaryotes do not have a mitochondria, they must not need ATP. Are you kidding? What do you think? Do you think bacteria does not need ATP? Does not need the energy molecule that all organisms use as energy? What do you think? Do they need ATP?
Yes.
Of course they do. That's similar to you saying, my cell phone. I bought my cell phone from Apple and it doesn't need a battery. So how do you use it? I don't know. You probably won't be able to use it because all cell phones need battery. So you need some kind of form of energy, and the universal molecule for that is ATP. So the idea is this. Bacteria, of course they need ATP. Bacteria makes ATP, stores energy in the form of ATP. They just don't have a mitochondria. They have the stuff of a mitochondria. They have the machinery, but not a mitochondria. So how do they do it? Hang in there, we'll talk about it. In Gen Bio, we mainly focused on the eukaryotic cellular respiration with the cytoplasm and the mitochondria and the mitochondrial matrix and the inner membrane of the mitochondria, the electron transport chain, oxidative phosphorylation. You're probably sitting here saying, oh no, is it coming back? Of course it is. And then we layer it in micro with the prokaryotic cellular respiration. You have to be curious. You have to say, okay, I learned how the eukaryotes do it in Gen Bio, I hope. I wonder how the prokaryotes do it. We'll find out. Yes, they don't have a mitochondria, but they have ways of making ATP. They have the stuff of a mitochondria. We'll talk about it. Some bacteria are photosynthetic, so they don't have a chloroplast. So they have the stuff of a chloroplast, but they don't have a chloroplast. What does a chloroplast do? What does a chloroplast make? Yeah, the chloroplast. What does it make? No, it has chlorophyll, but what is it making? The plants, what are they making? Yeah, they're undergoing photosynthesis, and that's the process of making something, right? My question is, what are they making?
Oxygen.
Yes, they're producing oxygen, but that's garbage. Plants' oxygen is photosynthesis garbage. I don't mean to insult you that we're breathing their garbage. Well, they're taking in your garbage. What's cellular respiration's garbage?
Air.
CO2.
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 Yeah, this is Gen Bio coming at you in real fast. Am I right? I'm trying to make a point. If you are not strong in Gen Bio, you better get strong within the next week or two. And that's where my reviews will help you. I don't know where you took and how long ago you took Gen Bio, but you gotta do something about it. Because in micro, it comes at you real quick and all at once. We don't do chapter 1, chapter 2, no, it's coming. Look at it. I'm talking about things that you heard of, right? In multiple chapters in Gen Bio 1, all at one time. Delta G, the cell membrane, disequilibrium, now cellular respiration, mitochondria, chapter 9, chloroplast, chapter 10. No, it's all coming at you in one 10-minute discussion. What does the chloroplast do or make? Huh?
CO2.
No, it uses CO2. It does make ATP, but then it uses it.
H2.
What does it eventually make?
Oxygen.
That's garbage.
Okay.
It does make oxygen, but it's garbage. Oxygen is photosynthesis garbage.
Like sugar?
Thank you. It's glucose.
Glucose.
Do you remember that? I hope.
C'est ça, c'est ça.
Yeah, Calvin cycle makes G3P, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Two G3Ps come together to make glucose. You should have heard from your Gen Bio professor that photosynthesis, plants feed the world. Plants feed themselves and you. The next time you pick a peach or an apple and eat it, where did that come from? Photosynthesis. The making of glucose. Yes, it makes oxygen, but that's actually garbage. It gets rid of it, and that's why you're breathing it. Yes, it makes ATP, the chloroplast, but then it uses it right away to make the glucose. I tell students this. If I had $5 in my pocket, that would be equivalent to ATP, right? I take it and I go to one of these vending machines and I use it to buy something. As I'm walking back, what do I have? Do I still have the $5? No. But I have whatever it is I bought from the machine. Do you agree? Same idea. Plants make ATP. Sorry, chloroplasts make ATP. But they use the ATP to make the glucose. So it's equivalent to me me asking, what do I have in my hand as I'm walking back to the room? Do I have the $5 ATP, or do I have the sugar, whatever it is I buy from the machine? I'll have the sugar. So you got to remember, plants use ATP that's made by the chloroplast for the purpose of making the glucose. And that you should remember the Calvin cycle and all that. If you don't, you go home and rehash things. You have all my YouTube videos from my Gen Bio classes for you to use as a form of review. So again, I stress the fact that prokaryotes, some of them at least, they don't have chloroplasts. They can't have a chloroplast. But they have the stuff of a chloroplast. And they can make glucose and photosynthesize and also produce oxygen, similar to plants do. It turns out that most of the oxygen that you're breathing right now, exactly 70% of it or so, comes from photosynthetic bacteria and photosynthetic algae. All algae are photosynthetic. That's who you really owe your life to. See, some students think that, well, plants give us oxygen. Yeah, they do, yeah. But that's just 30%. You actually get most of your oxygen from these photosynthetic microorganisms. But what plants do give us for sure is food. Whether you eat plants directly or you eat an animal, like hamburgers would be cow, for example, that ate the plant. Whether you eat the plants directly or you eat the plants indirectly, it doesn't matter. Plants feed the world. Okay. So this is the breakdown of the types of microorganisms. Can someone do I think there's a rod you can twist. Yeah, thank you. Good. Now, let's look at unicellular, multicellular. We said that all bacteria and archaea are unicellular. And they're also all microscopic. Okay? When it comes to the eukaryotes, things like protozoa, algae, fungi, and watch this one, helminths, these parasitic worms. But when it comes to the helminths, in egg or larva form, they can be microscopic, unicellular. But in adult form, oh, you'll see them. Some of them can be 25 meters long. So you can see them easily. So it depends. Helminths is a weird one. Because normally we would talk about organisms that are microorganisms, that are small. So what are helminths doing here? Because you can see them. Well, the reason we include them for two reasons. You got to write this down. There are two reasons why we include a discussion of helminths in microbiology, even though you can see them, especially in adult form. Number one, it's because at one time or another in their life cycle, they are microscopic. Like right here. At one time or another in their life cycle, they are microscopic. The other reason is because when they enter you, God forbid, they're going to elicit an immune response. You think your immune system is going to sit there and take it? No way. Your immune system will be like, what is this? They don't belong here. And they're going to go on the attack, hopefully.
When they enter you, they're gonna?
Yeah, you're going to elicit an immune response. Your immune system is going to react to it. Thank God. Trying to get rid of them. And immunology, which is the study of the immune system, is part of microbiology. That's why we talk about helminths in microbiology, even though we can actually see them and they're not microscopic. Nice question on the exam. Do you agree? I agree. That's why I said what? Write it down. My Gen Bio students sitting around you, you might want to identify who they are and ask them about me. And hopefully they'll tell you one thing about me, is this guy says everything that's on the exam. And I'm very proud of that. For all the years I've been teaching, I don't sleep at night knowing that I didn't talk about something and it's on the test. I can't have that. So the idea is this. The answers to the questions on all my exams, they literally come right out of my mouth. And sometimes I give a hint. It would make a good question on the exam. That means it's on the exam. Most likely. So you make a little asterisk next to that information saying, I think it's on the exam. Sometimes my body language gives it away. Sometimes I repeat something 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I think this thing is on the exam, and so forth. So I know for a fact there isn't a single question on the exam that I will not talk about. And I have a deal with you. I have a challenge for you. When you come to my office and you review your exam, because that's where you need to come to review your exam, if you find one question that I did not talk about and you convince me or I agree with you, I will remove that question from the exam for everyone. That's my promise. So that's my way of saying stay attentive. Take notes. Show up to class. Don't miss class because you miss a lot. Okay. All algae are photosynthetic. All algae are photosynthetic. We mentioned that already because they give us most of our oxygen. When it comes to other organisms, some algae and fungi, remember some of them are unicellular microscopic, but some of them are multicellular microscopic. And then you have the not microscopic, some fungi like mushroom. You can clearly see it on your pizza, right? So that would be not microscopic, even though It is a fungus. So make a distinction, please, between the two asterisks and the single asterisk. The two asterisks meaning all organisms within this group are photosynthetic. The single asterisk says just some of them are photosynthetic. Not all bacteria are photosynthetic. Okay, now let's quick talk about the other ones, acellular. If you say to a virus, you are microscopic, that virus will be insulted. Will be like, I'm what? I'm small? You're insulting me. Why? Because I'm not small. I'm very, very small. That's what the word ultra microscopic means. These guys, you need to use an electron microscope to see them. The bacteria and the protozoa and the algae that you'll be seeing in the lab, your standard light microscope, just fine. With bacteria, most likely you'll have to go to 1000 total magnification to really see them good, take nice pictures of them. You can still kind of see them at 400, that's fine. But if you really want to get up close and personal with them, 1000 works beautiful, oil immersion. But you try to do that with viruses, you're not going to see anything. They're too small. They are what? Ultra microscopic. Very good. So, but what are they? If they're not cells, then what are they? They're just a little package of genetic material. Listen to this. It's kind of like having a cardboard box with something inside it, like a toy, for example. That's all they are. It's a package with genetic material inside. That's it. And there might be some on the table, on your book bag, and they're just sitting there, doing nothing. Because they are, in that form, they're called inactive. They're just sitting there, doing nothing. So what's the genetic material in there? It depends. It depends on which virus you're talking about. Because some viruses have RNA as the genetic material. Other viruses have DNA as the genetic material. And that's a whole unit, by the way, on its own. We'll talk about it. But as far as I know, and I think I'm right, and I have to put a disclaimer so far, because you never know what tomorrow brings, right? We have not found a virus that has both RNA and DNA. So viruses have either RNA or DNA, but not both. Yeah.
What's the difference between the virus and satellite virus?
The satellite viruses are technically, you can call them viruses of viruses. We'll talk more about them in that unit. We'll talk more about them. You'll hear all the virus information in another unit. Yeah, go ahead.
So if they're only DNA or RNA, they're not really living organisms.
You can't say them, yeah, see, we'll talk about it in that unit too.
Okay.
You can't say, I don't want to give all my tricks away, but you can't say they're alive. And you can't say they're dead. You know, like disinfectant, and it says on there in big letters to get you to buy it, kills viruses. Am I right? That's just a marketing scheme to some extent, because they're not going to say it this way. Inactivates viruses. And you're going to look at it. Ugh, it only inactivates them. I don't need that. I want something that kills. You catching it? You can't kill something that's not alive. Why? Because it's not alive. You catching that? But, you know, the average person who goes to the store to buy something like a hand sanitizer, they're not going to sit there and study the difference between killing and inactive, you know what I mean? But the standard thing that they would write on something, kills viruses. But the actual thing, now that you're taking micro, it should actually say inactivates them. So viruses are either inactive or active.
And it activates once it enters the host.
Inactive when they're sitting outside. And it activates once it enters your cells. not just you. It has to enter your cell. And that's the whole idea of viruses. Viruses are cell hijackers. They hijack your cell. Once they go in there, it's like an unwanted guest at home. Once they go in there, watch this, they knock on the door, watch. And then you foolishly open the door. And it goes into your foyer, and it says, hey, by the way, yeah, everything in this house is mine. I just hijacked your home. Everything is mine. And you're now going to bow down to me, yeah, and make copies of me. Why? So I can leave and hijack other cells. That's what viruses do. So I'll talk about it in the net unit. I refer to them as an unwanted guest because no one wants that to happen to them. But the problem is that you foolishly open the door for them. But let's say you don't open the door. You know what they're going to do? They're going to knock the door down. And they're going to still get in there. So we'll talk about it when the time comes. That's my analogy of that. Now we talked about varioids and prions already. But one other thing with viruses. We know what's inside the package. Genetic material. Isn't that what I said?
Mhm.
Either RNA or
DNA,
DNA, but not
not both of them.
both. Very good. But what about the package itself? You know, the cardboard box? What about the cardboard part? What is that made up of? Proteins. So instead of a cardboard box with a toy inside, right? You have a protein container with genetic material inside. That's what a virus is. Again, we'll talk a lot more about this when the time comes. Okay, fields of microbiology or branches of microbiology. I want you guys to think real quick about something. I'll give you whatever, 20, 30 seconds to think about it. Just inside in your mind. Think of this. How did microbiology affect me today? So let's say you woke up at 6 o'clock to come in here today. That's about 2 hours so far. How did microbiology affect you today? Was it at any point along the way between 6 to 8 a.m. Involved in your life? Think about it. Based on what I said so far and what you know about life and microbiology. And if you're ready, share. How did microbiology affect you today? You understand the question, right?
Your gut biome?
Gut. Good. So you have bacteria in your gut? Ew. Everybody has bacteria in their gut. Don't worry about it. So how are these guys helping you?
They help break down your food.
There you go. They definitely help digest your food. They give you vitamins, certain kinds of vitamins like vitamin K. They keep your immune system on red alert. They keep your immune system healthy, hopefully, for the rest of your life. Good. What else?
Going from one environment to the other, like your home environment to the other.
Okay, so I'm going to read into what you just said and prove to me or confirm with me what I'm understanding is what you're saying. Sounds good? You're thinking that your home environment has certain pathogens
Yeah.
versus here a lot more pathogens, right?
Well, the outside it was colder versus
Okay.
the inside, and it's
So
like-
maybe the cold weakens your immune system to some extent, right? And you're not fighting the pathogens as efficiently, but also your home environment may expose you to certain microorganisms
or being
that are
surrounded.
different, and then being around other people. Good. And you might want to wear a mask maybe sometimes, right? So that you don't get sick sometimes. Yeah. What else?
The air we breathe.
Yeah, I almost started hyperventilating over here to give you a clue. Thank you for that. The air you breathe. Microbiology affected you. I said from 6 to 8, right? Microbiology was affecting you at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning while you're sleeping. Aren't you breathing? Hopefully. And where do you get 70% of your oxygen? From
photosynthetic bacteria.
and
Photosynthetic algae.
algae. All algae are photosynthetic. So you don't have to say photosynthetic algae, just say algae, right? Good. So oxygen, thank you for that. Because I usually have to hyperventilate for students to pick up on it. I go, and oh yeah, oxygen. Do you have water in front of you?
Yep.
Yeah. Is it clean? Is it clean?
Hopefully.
Clean of what?
Hopefully.
Clean of pathogens potentially?
Yeah.
And you paid money for that, right?
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah. There you go. That's another thing. So, are you good? Are you healthy? Anybody sick? Hopefully not. Anyone sick?
No.
Good. Your immune system is working good? Good. It's part of
I
microbiology,
got
right?
sutures.
That's fine. That's okay. So what I'm saying to you is this. What I'm trying to say to you is, you can't get away with it. You can't get away from it. Even when you go shopping for food, it's all over the place. Microbiology, and you got to make sure the food is clean, that it's healthy, that it doesn't hurt you. From time to time, we get messages saying recall on the lettuce, right? And you run to your refrigerator, you just throw it away. Recall on this, recall on that. Now they have a recall on Samsung washing machines.
Yeah.
They explode. So I right away check, do I have a Samsung? No, thank God. So double check if you have a Samsung or not, right? So confirm that. So we need to stay healthy. There are different fields of microbiology involved in every aspect of your life, whether you're familiar with it or know about it or not. If you want to stay healthy and you end up getting sick, for example, you go to a doctor, that's medical microbiology. And you are all going to be part of that, being in the health-related fields. Let's say you decide to be a pediatrician or a pediatric nurse, for example. What's the number one thing you'll be dealing with in children? Viruses and bacteria. Will you from time to time deal with broken arms and legs? Yeah. But what's the average thing on a daily basis that you'll be dealing with children? Cold, infections, runny nose, those kind of things. Viruses and bacteria, that's what, medical microbiology. Yes, I know you'll be dealing with other things, but I'm saying more often than not, your solid understanding of medical microbiology is what's going to get you through something like pediatric nurse practitioner in pediatrics, or a pediatrician physician. Of course, you don't have to be a pediatrician to deal with that. All doctors deal with this, of course. All right, public health. Have we dealt with that? Yeah, 2020. COVID-19. And God help us. It might be coming back from what we hear. All right? So epidemics, pandemics, endemics. So the Centers of Disease Control in Atlanta is mainly responsible for taking care of us in the United States. They set rules and laws when some things happen to try to protect us. But worldwide, it's WHO meaning World Health Organization. So they work hand in hand to try to prevent the spread of disease. Do you think that's important in your life? Of course it is. And before COVID-19, I always talked about it as a hypothetical, right? No more. We all lived through it. Industrial microbiology. This is using microorganisms to get them to do things for us. Some of these things, they do things for us because we genetically engineered them to do that. They don't normally do that, but through biotechnology, we genetically engineered them to do it. For example, and that's something, again, you'll be a part of in the health-related fields. Insulin. The production of human insulin. Does bacteria produce human insulin? Of course not. Who produces human insulin? Humans. But now we have bacteria that we genetically engineered through biotechnology to have the human insulin gene. So we put the gene in there. And you'll be doing something like that in lab this semester. You'll see. And now that bacterial strain can make human insulin. And we can grow it in large amounts and isolate the insulin, purify the insulin, bottle the insulin, and give it to you, the nurse or doctor, to inject it in your diabetic patients. Now, without that, this would be very difficult to do on a mass scale to treat people with diabetes, but with this biotechnology and the incorporation of the human insulin gene in bacteria, it saved a lot of headache and problems, and now the therapy is readily available because of the mass production of human insulin in these bacterial strains. We use bacteria to do other things. They also help us in the production of growth hormone, human growth hormone, for those patients who are struggling to grow for whatever reason. A substitute hemoglobin. We can make a substitute hemoglobin, for example, for people who are fighting war and they get injured in the field. There's no blood to give them. They have substitute hemoglobin to sustain their life until they get medical attention. Antibiotics, vaccinations, things like that. Okay, agricultural microbiology. This is the field of microbiology that deals with plants and animals. So basically, to keep our food supply clear of any pathogens so we can stay healthy. Environmental, you can tell, these guys deal with things that relate to water, air, and soil. So hopefully these are self-explanatory for you. All right, some definitions, because I might be using these. Anything that ends with ology means the study of. Study of what? Whatever the prefix is. In some cases, the prefix is very standard, very straightforward. It's right there. Immunology is the study of the immune system. Bacteriology, study of bacteria. You see? Virology, protozoology is the study of protozoans like amoeba, paramecia. Then you get to this phycology, the study of what is that? That one you need to know, because it's not obvious. So look at the list of words here. They're all obvious, except mycology and phycology. Do you agree? Yeah. Watch and see in a year or so. You're going to come back to me. I don't know why I didn't know mycology, because MYC always means fungus. MYC is attached to a lot of things like medication. Whatever, that means it's a medication that fights fungi, because the prefix MYC implies fungus. And you'll learn that and you'll know it, like you know bacteriology is the study of bacteria. But for now, those are the two words I would focus on. Phycology is algae. Mycology is fungi. Sounds good? All right. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and finish this. Go ahead, 5-minute break.